Hey, good morning everyone. Kay here on my homestead in Tennessee. And it's been a few weeks since we had a sit-down chat and talked about what's going on in the world. And I thought I wanted to bring a few things to your attention. So yesterday I saw this and this is the good news. I'll start with the good news. Maine town declares food sovereignty. And I just saw this last night. It's shared on a Telegram channel, so I don't know exactly when this happened, but Sedgwick, Maine has done what no other town in the United States has done. It unanimously passed an ordinance giving its citizens the right, quote, to produce, process, sell, purchase, and consume local foods of their choosing, unquote. Now that is really amazing. This includes raw milk, locally slaughtered meats, and just about anything else you can imagine. It's also a decided bucking of state and federal laws. So go for it, Sedgwick, Maine. This comes in, just a few weeks after the feds raided Amos Miller's farm in Pennsylvania. I know that Doug at Off Grid with Doug and Stacy has been talking about Amos Miller, and Miller's farm is where I used to be a member and get raw dairy. So, you're basically putting these people out of business, and for what? Meanwhile, we have all these other things that are happening in our world, in our country, that are seemingly completely out of control. And you need to crack down on an Amish farmer in Pennsylvania who's been doing business a certain way and providing locally grown and processed foods for his community that wants them with no issues for decades. So what's that all about? Overreach. So food sovereignty is number one on our list today. And I wanted to just mention a channel that I happened to just see yesterday. I've seen the channel name a few times. When you're searching for information, a lot of channels come up. And now, the people that are spewing out hardcore truths have been censored. So you might not find that on YouTube, but you can on other channels. At any rate, this channel is on YouTube and it's Yanasa TV. They interview a lot of people and it's a big operation, it seems. And they cover food sovereignty. Recent titles are We're Out of Time. And the one I just watched yesterday was Thousands of Farmers Kill Off Their Crops. They had a lot of schematics that they cut to and illustrations, and it showed the drought, particularly in Texas. And this is what I was trying to get across to my son, who works in the grass-fed beef business. And while we understand that industrial agriculture, feedlots and that kind of, feeding them corn and fattening them up and that USDA grade A and all of that supposed stuff that's good, we must remember that cows are not supposed to eat grain, they're supposed to eat grass. So to fatten them up on grain, we just accepted that because the USDA says this is the best. You go into a restaurant, USDA choice. Guess what? That cow was fattened up in a feedlot and sold to slaughter. But just because, this is what I was trying to get across to my son, when they sell off their breeder stock, which is what he was talking about yesterday, they're not just selling off their regular number of cows that they would be selling. Some are selling off their breeder stock, which means they're most likely not going to get back into it next year if things look better. Are they going to really invest? I mean, there's such a slim profit margin, even in the industrial side. There's such a slim profit margin. Are they going to get back into the business next year if they've sold off all their product? And another point he was making is in California, you know, they're cutting down orchards. You know how many years it takes to develop an orchard? So this just forebodes a lot of foods not being available. At worst case scenario, famine. I mean, I really imagine, and many people say, that Europe is going to have pockets of famine this year because you know, France is produces a quarter of the grain or wheat or both, I'm not sure, in Europe. So they're out of business because their country is on fire and drought like they haven't seen before. So if not now, when are you going to get prepared? Seriously. I happened to see an article yesterday, a day before yesterday, and it's a man who survived the Bosnian War back in the 90s. Hang on a second. He's written a book, and he has met with preppers to try to give them, their preppers are very interested in how they survived back in the 90s. They had no warning. One day, everything's fine. He's living in a 20 to 30,000 person city, a small city in Bosnia. And the next day they have civil war and the tanks are rolling in. And it's like, whoa, what happened? We're not prepared. We don't have water. We don't have this, we don't have anything prepared. And so, and this went on for 1 year. Now here we are thinking, okay, we're going to get, what are you thinking? Are you thinking, okay, I've got a week or two supply of food and water and fuel, and I'm sure, you know, things will get back together after that. Well, what if they didn't? I mean, he goes into great detail about how they survived, what they bartered, who were picked off first by the gangs. I won't get too graphic, but he did. It's very, very, very serious. And so I highly encourage you to just imagine, for example, water. If your water was turned off, and when you're in a city and you're in an apartment building, I mean, believe me, I lived in apartments for decades. So you're at the mercy of your landlord or the city, you know, the public works, you're just at their mercy. So what do you have prepared? What do you have stockpiled? I'm going to talk more about water in a separate video, but start thinking about this because it got really bad in Bosnia because it was so dangerous. You couldn't go out in the daytime. The only way they survived was they had a large family and friends they could trust. He said, you may love your neighbor, but if your neighbor's son is hungry, well, he said, you know, they'll kill you for food. So what are you going to do? I mean, I was in contact yesterday with an acquaintance, someone I met at a film festival back when I was taking Late Bloomer on the road. I went to a number of web festivals back in the 2015, 16, and 17. And Late Bloomer actually won Best Reality Series in the Vancouver Web Fest in 2017. And I decided I did one more after that, you know, traveling, hotels. I mean, it's expensive to chase that. And it's different if you're doing, if you're directing a fiction type thing and you're trying to establish yourself as a director. After I won the trophy, I did one more. It was actually a friend's web fest in Germany. And then I said, that's it. I'm not doing that anymore. And so I also saw a clip yesterday of this 1 mile in Boston. It's just a homeless camp and it goes for an entire mile. And so this is what, you know, the man in Boston was pointing out. and what we've always known is it's going to be worse in the cities. So where can you go? What can you do? Community. Like he said, there's strength in numbers. We've heard that expression our whole life. There's strength in numbers. And that's how they survive. I'm going to have to get, some numbers here. I mean, I am developing my community here. I've met another neighbor since my last video talking about this. Gotten to know another set of neighbors a little bit better. And so I am working on it. I am sharing my produce in case anybody is wondering what I'm doing with all that food. My neighbor texted this morning and said, could you use any green peppers, bell peppers? Well, I didn't grow that. I think I had one plant and I've had one pepper. So I said, sure. I said, can you use any cabbage? So I'm going to give him cabbage. He's going to give me peppers. And I'm going to ferment the peppers. Anyway, this friend in New York, I was just stunned. I sort of reacquainted, had to look back in the thread on Facebook to see how I knew this person. And then I remembered, met her at a web festival, and I knew that she lived in Manhattan, which I lived in Manhattan for 7 years. So we didn't have any problems like this then. But I mean, there were other issues, local issues, the dirt, the grime, the crime. The dirt, the grime, the crime. I guess you could just say the grime, the crime. Broken down subways and just whew. But it was a great time. I was young, and I really thought I'd never live anywhere else, and now I know I would never live there. At any rate, I said, I hope you have an exit strategy, and things could get a lot worse before they get better. She said, please, what do you mean? Please tell me. And I'm thinking, seriously? I mean, even mainstream media, which, well, I won't go there, but, even mainstream media is covering some of it now. So some things are just in it, they have to report on some things because so many people know about them. So it's just shocking to me that people still don't have a clue about what's going on. And, if you just look at the obvious statistics and the facts and the data, there's drought all over Europe. They have no fuel because they're trying to, push this green agenda. So everybody drives a $65,000 electric vehicle, which they couldn't afford to replace the battery in if it went bad. And the lithium for the batteries, comes from these horrific mines that just deface the planet. They know that most people can't afford these cars, but they're pushing this whole agenda anyway. And you have to ask yourself, well, why? What is at the bottom of all this? I mean, just if you see one fishy thing, then you go, well, if that's true, then what else were you lied to about? I mean, it just we have no idea. I mean, in 1962, Lyndon Johnson was giving an address at a graduation, and he said, "He who controls the weather controls the world," and something to that effect. And they've been working on that for a very long time. I mean, there are hundreds of weather modification companies with planes that do that sort of thing. I mean, just for an event, they will hire a weather modification company to make sure that your wedding doesn't get rained on. I mean, if you're rich enough, I mean, this information is out there and easy to find if you're looking. Now, if you're not looking, I mean, there are many people, I would say from 75 maybe and up years old, that sort of miss that whole computer thing. My mother is now 92, and she we lived in a small town, and when she jumped in and got a computer in the 90s, when her friends were going, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And my mother wrote 3 memoirs, you know. Oh, I don't think she finished the 3rd one. But, you know, they just missed that whole technology boom, and are probably happier for it, frankly. But if you don't have the internet, you're not savvy with going to the internet and looking for information, you might just, and you live in a small town and things seem to be operate. I mean, yes, the gas is high, the food prices are high, and you're not going to go on a vacation because you don't have that extra money and all of that. Besides that, you might not be that aware of what's going on. But if you have any knowledge of the internet, this information is widely known. And once you start peeling back those layers of that onion, you go, well, wait a minute. Okay, what is going on here? But now, the World Economic Forum has made it very clear that of their goals and published their goals. They operated in kind of the shadows in the background for long decades. But now they've just made it clear that you, meaning us, meaning all of us, will own nothing and we will be happy. And just imagine that, if you will. So how is that going to happen? Well, interestingly, our administration in Washington, just with a stroke of a pen, added 87,000. Think about that, 87,000. That's 1,600 if you just divided it by 50 states. That's about 1,600 new armed and dangerous IRS officers. And you think, what is that all about? You're arming your agency. By the way, the IRS is the only agency, did you know this, that can take your property without a warrant? Did you know that? Yeah. So what is that all about? Suddenly it feels like we are the enemy. And meanwhile, 40,000 children estimated a month are coming across the border and being shipped all over the country. What's happening to them? Who's receiving them? Who's taking them? Are you concerned about that? So anyway, like I said, I started with the good news. I just want to do my part in helping people to wake up before it's too late. So if this has been helpful, I hope you subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, scroll down and click all. I have so much food preserving to do today because I already had a lot of my own stuff to do, and a friend this week, they're not a neighbor, they're friends, brought me a bag of Armenian cucumbers because I said, yeah, sure, I'd like that. And then meanwhile, my neighbor's been bringing me cucumbers. And then the neighbor that I gave a cabbage to left some yellow squash, which I didn't grow this year, on my mailbox. So I got that to put up. And then yesterday, crazy me, I was driving back from the dentist, and there was a man selling produce on the side of the road. And I thought, well, if you're sitting out here in the hot sun, I want to try to support you, especially if you're growing your own food. So I stopped and I looked around. I said, well, what does he have that I don't? And what I don't have is corn, because my corn is a bust, and I'll cover that in another video. Sad. But so I bought a half a bag of corn and a box of tomatoes, because I thought, hey, you can always can more tomatoes, right? So and then I got some peaches, because my peach trees didn't produce this year. So yeah, I have a whole lot to do in the kitchen. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope it's helpful. Please leave me a comment. Let me know where you are in your journey of awakening and your you're prepping, just think about, you know, what would I do if the grid went down for 2 weeks? Just start there. 1 week, start there, 1 week, you know, canned food, water, fuel, just the basics, you know. All right, I hope this is helpful. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.